she ain't even screaming.
Oh, yeah, in the air. Oh, yeah.
Say it sound like the wind.
Like a breeze. A breeze. Oh, yeah.
That's what they say.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
She in it.
Oh, yeah.
Holding her head.
Oh, yeah, girl.
Laying up somewhere.
Staring out somewhere.
Somewhere.
Lord God.
Oh, yeah.
That girl.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet smile.
Oh, yeah, in the air.
Sad in the eyes.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they say. That's what I know.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful girl.
Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome. Hello. Can everyone please silence your cell phones? And welcome to our friends who are joining us across the country on live stream. You do not need to silence your cell phones. I'm Stephen Sachs. I'm the artistic director of the Fountain Theater. And before every rehearsal, Shirley Joe would do what she called a check-in, right? I mean, she would, get her cast all together in a circle and check in with them, get a sense of where each actor was at, what are you feeling, how you doing, kind of take a temperature. So let's kind of do a check-in right now. How y'all doing? You all right? Okay, good. Now, if you're like me, you're feeling all kinds of things. Heartbroken, mournful, still in disbelief, grateful, blessed, thankful. Thankful for being given time to share with this one-of-a-kind human soul. I want to thank our good friends here at Center Theater Group and the Kirk Douglas Theater for hosting us tonight. And it's really fitting that we're here because 6 years ago, when the Kirk Douglas launched its very first block party, highlighting work from LA's intimate theaters, the Fountain Theater's production of Citizen, an American Lyric, was chosen and performed here, directed by Shirley Jo Finney. So tonight we're going to talk about circles. The production circles, the circles of community, the circles of friendship and family that Shirley Jo created. The circle is a sacred symbol. It demonstrates oneness, symmetry, eternity, equality. Because each point in a circle is equal distant to the center, right? And Shirley Jo believed that every artist working on a Shirley Jo Finney production had equal access to the center. Shirley Jo was the mistress of circles. She had her Fountain Theater circle, she had her UCLA circle, she had her Bellingham, Washington circle, she had her sister circle, right? And some of them are here tonight. She had her family circle, and of course her close private circle. And tonight we're going to hear from a few friends and loved ones from each of those circles. Shirley Jo entered my circle 26 years ago when she directed a play at the Fountain Theater called From the Mississippi Delta. Bernadette is here. Yeah, that play came to me through Dr. Beverly Robinson at UCLA. I was told that the play was marvelous. I read it. I loved the script. I was told that the play had a director attached to it. I was told. It was some woman named Shirley Jo Finney. But I don't have to use her, I was told. But she is very good, I was told. So we met And they were right. She was very good. And thus began one of the most rewarding relationships, artistic and personal, in my life. She directed 9 plays at the Fountain Theater. Among them are some of the most beloved, longest-running, critically acclaimed, and award-winning productions in our 33-year history. And here now is a longtime member of Shirley Joe's Fountain Circle. He is an award-winning actor, seen on stage at the Mark Taper Forum, A Noise Within, the Getty Villa, Antaeus, several times at the Fountain Theater, and right here at the Kirk Douglas Theater in Citizen and American Lyric. Ladies and gentlemen, Bernard Addison.
I'm going to make it real cute. Those words evoked so much about the experience of working with Shirley Joe Finney. My first encounter with Shirley Joe Finney was not the way a new actor in a new town would want to start out. Now, I get a call from my manager about an audition for a new play being done at the Fountain Theater, a play called Central Avenue. My manager said that this was a theater that I would want to get to know. I read the play, I was excited, I was eager. I went to the audition with my heart set on the main character. I meet Shirley Joe. She's already speaking in jazz, in that musical, reedy voice. Well, hello. I read. She leans forward. She tries not to give too much away, but she seems excited, interested. She calls me a couple days later and casts me in the show, but not in the role that I had my heart set out for. I did something that I had never done before. I turned down the offer. I think she was surprised. Well, I know I was. I was trying to rewrite my script as an actor, and I thought that I should not take on something where I felt I would be giving less. Well, she accepted this rejection and wished me well. I burned a bridge. What the hell? I didn't see the show. It ran for 13,000 weeks. I was mortified that I made such a blunder. Later in time, I'm in the audience watching a play called Yellow Man, featuring Deidre Henry and Chris Butler. The performance and production flew off the stage. It was a critical and commercial success. This woman was a genius. And I said no. Then, the Ballad of Emmett Till. Here's where the power of the spirit of Shirley Joe comes into full form. The play was commissioned by Ben Bradley from a script by Ifa Baeza. Ben wanted to transform Ifa's script from a full-length 2-act play with 12 characters and a chorus to a 90-minute 5-actor play where all the actors are Black and they play all the players in the tragedy that was the life and death of Emmett Till. 3 days into rehearsal, Ben doesn't show. We wait for hours. We then go home only to be told the next day that Ben was brutally murdered in his home. Tragedy has now come home to roost. After a couple of days of shock and what to do next, we get a call. Shirley Joe Finney has agreed to come on board to mount the show. What director in their right mind would do that? Well, we all know Shirley Joe wasn't in her right mind. She was in her left one, where dreams and spirits and the life force dwell. I immediately called Deirdre. Tell me about this, Shirley Joe. Deirdre gave me two things to remember throughout while working with her. First, she is brilliant. Second, she is crazy. Sounded like somebody I wanted to build a bridge with. With the Ballad of Emmett Till, Shirley became a healer to us, a shaman, a concise precision maker, a lover of the art of the collaboration. She didn't direct with words. She directed with sounds, incantations, emotional spontaneity. She spoke in pulses. She meditated on moments. She jazzed. I loved every second of it, even when I didn't know what she was saying. But I knew. She would nickname her actors. Chesty, No Purpose, Glodine. I was nicknamed the Professor because I would become the Shirley Joe Finney translator for the cast. What she means is this. What she wants is that. I cherish my nickname. The success of the Ballad of Emmett Till is legendary in LA theater. Not only was it on everyone's top 10 list of theater events that year, but it was also legendary for me in understanding the true healing power in theater. Shirley Joe healed us, and she taught us how to heal others. This healing power came into play when we collaborated on Citizen, American Lyric. One day on my way to rehearsal, the news flashed that a young white male walked into a black church in Charleston, South Carolina, and gunned down 9 parishioners. The rehearsal that day was intense. It was messy. It was angry. It was holy. Shirley Joe became more than a director. She became a North Star, a guide to get us through and solidify our voice, a voice we carried throughout our run. What I say tonight and will remember is how this phenomenal, crazy vibration of a human allowed us all to find our voices, to heal, to build bridges. My time is up here, so I just want to say to you all that love Shirley Joe in the present tense. This is the directive. Listen to your left brain. Say yes to a challenge. Let spirit guide you and use your art to heal. In memory, in memory, in memory, in memory, in memory, in memory, in memory. With love to all.
Shirley Joe Finney was born on July 14th in Merced, California. Her mother was a teacher. Her father sold auto parts. In 1959, she moved to Sacramento with her family. She was in the drama club in high school, then attended Sacramento State College, where she starred in the West Coast premiere of Ain't Supposed to Die a Natural Death by Melvin Van Peebles before it went to New York off-Broadway. Then at a party, she met the Olympic sprinter Wilma Rudolph, and they became friends. And Shirley Joe told her, "One day I'm going to make a film about you." She graduated from UCLA with a master's degree in theater. After some film and TV work, her promise to Wilma Rudolph came true. She was cast in the TV movie Wilma, which also starred Cicely Tyson and featured a young 21-year-old actor named Denzel Washington. Turning to directing, Shirley Joe directed at the Pasadena Playhouse, LA Theater Works, the Mark Taper Forum, the Goodman Theater in Chicago, the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., the McCarter Theater, and Crossroads Theater Company in New Jersey, and other regional theaters across the United States. And in 2011, an extraordinary adventure that was 2 years in the making came to fruition when she directed Winnie the Opera, based on the life of Winnie Mandela. At the 1,300-seat State Theater of South Africa, performed by a cast of 30 and a 65-member orchestra. Yeah. It was not quite the Fountain Theater, okay? Then she moved up to Bellingham, Washington in 2015, near her sister Diana. And there, Shirley Joe cultivated her Bellingham circle. In that circle was Cheryl Crooks. She is a professional photographer and executive director of Cascadia International Women's Film Festival, celebrating films directed by women. Please welcome Cheryl Crooks.
Thank you, Stephen. Good evening. I'm honored to be here to speak about Shirley Joe. My name, as Stephen said, is Cheryl Crooks, and I'm Executive Director of Cascadia International Women's Film Festival. We're dedicated to showcasing the films directed by women. It takes an army of people, mostly volunteers, to bring this festival together each year, and Shirley Joe Finney was one of those people. Shirley Joe moved to Bellingham a few years ago from Los Angeles to be closer to her sister Diana and the dog Rusty, which she walked all the time. Although she had a home in Bellingham, she was rarely there because, as the brilliant stage director she was often on the road. We first met a few years ago, pre-pandemic, over breakfast at a little place in Bellingham that reminds me a lot of the Beechwood Cafe in Los Angeles. I had learned about Shirley Joe from our then board president, who had been told by the Apple repair person that Shirley Joe often came into the store with her laptop. So after I looked her up online, I knew I had to meet her. I contacted her through a website, and much to my surprise, she replied. At breakfast that day, she said that she didn't know many people in Bellingham outside of her sister's friends because she was gone so much, to which I replied, "Stick with me, kid. I'll introduce you to the people here you need to know." I especially wanted her to meet, first of all, Valerie Delana, who was also a writer-director who had moved from Los Angeles to Bellingham, and who, as it turned out, didn't live very far from Shirley Joe. But, as it turned out, Valerie had known Shirley Joe in Los Angeles, and the two of them had even been in a mutual friend's wedding. So it was a good start to establishing a network of friends here in Bellingham. I also told her about the festival and its mission that morning, and she wanted immediately to become part of it. She served on Cascadia's advisory board and was a member of the program committee, the committee that makes the final decisions and selections of the films that we accept into the festival. Her opinions and insights on that committee were invaluable, and she was especially adept at suggesting, I guess this comes as no surprise, how we might group the films together into programs. She was also on our script studio panel at the festival and provided the selected writers with what our script studio moderator described as $1 million worth of advice. In addition to her Cascadia family, Shirley Joe became part of a women's breakfast group, all of whom are in some way connected to the arts. She looked forward to attending those breakfasts on first Friday of every month whenever she was in town, and would ask me, "Are the girls getting together this Friday?" The women in that group enjoyed her and admired her, and she became one of us. During COVID, she directed Stephen's stage adaptation of Claudia Rankine's lyric poem Citizen, as you know, and from online on Bellingham. It was the only directing effort of hers that I got to see, and it was, of course, brilliantly done. Also during the pandemic, she was a guest professor at Western Washington University in Bellingham, where she taught online a couple of theater classes to some very fortunate and appreciative students, including 2 of my festival interns, one of whom is here tonight. The students loved her, and they were inspired by her generosity and her ability to get to the heart of the story. As a good friend, we shared meals, attended films, concerts, local theater together, and had long talks about all sorts of things, usually about movies we had seen, television programs we were watching, or politics. We often met and walked 3 miles around Lake Padden, especially during the pandemic, when you could only spend time with friends outdoors. So one day I drove up for our walk to find Shirley Joe standing outside her car, her arms crossed and resting on top of the car. I just had gotten out of my car when she asked me, "So, how do you know Rita Rothman?" I was surprised because Rita was someone I knew from Los Angeles for 40 years, when the 2 of us had helped co-found a writers' organization here. I said, "Well, exactly how do you know Rita Rothman?" I answered, and it turned out that Rita had been Shirley Joe's friend and walking buddy in Los Angeles. It was yet another indication to me that Shirley Joe and I were meant to be friends. I really miss Shirley Joe. Her big presence, her bright smile that could light up a room, and the wonderful conversations we had together over glasses of wine. And especially now, as we're selecting films for this year's festival. Black Barbie was the last film she watched for us and gave her feedback and thoughts as to whether or not Cascadia should sponsor the film. She said Cascadia most definitely needed to sponsor it. At last year's script studio, when discussing a character with one of the writers, Shirley Joe said, "People want just 3 things in life. They want to be nurtured, they want to be safe, and they want to be seen." Shirley Joe was truly seen and beloved by those of us at Cascadia, her many friends in Bellingham, the actors and crew she directed, the audiences she entertained, and the students she taught. We deeply miss her. Thank you.
So as we all know, Shirley Joe was a force of nature. She was a wellspring of joyful noise. She was tremendous fun to be with. And when she was with you, 100%. And that laugh. The philosophical question has been raised: are we spiritual beings having a human experience, or are we physical beings with a spirit? And as this video will show, Shirley Joe was one and the same. Let's have a look.
Thank you so much. There will be many other nights like this, and I'll be standing here with someone new. There will be other songs to sing, another fall, another spring, but there will never be another you. There will be other lips that I may kiss, They won't thrill me like yours used to do. Say I may dream a million dreams, but how can they come true if there will never ever be another you? Never, 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 there'll never be another you. And I'll be standing here with someone new. There will be other songs to sing, another fall, another spring, and there will never be another you. There will be other lips that I may kiss, but they won't thrill me like yours used to do. Yes, I may dream a million dreams, but how can they come true if there will never ever be? There will never be another you. Just you. There will be other lips that I may kiss. They won't thrill me like yours used to do. I may dream a million dreams, but how can they come true if there will never ever be? There will never ever be. There will never, never ever be another you. Just you. Just you.
Tina Lifford is an actress best known for 7 seasons as Violet on Queen Sugar. She is founder and CEO of the Inner Fitness Project and playwright of, say it with me, The Circle. Tina Lifford.
Hey, everybody. So, one of the things that an actor dislikes most is when another actor takes their lines. And Bernard, you took all of mine. I truly am annoyed about that. But it gives me the opportunity to improvise, to pivot, and to talk about what it meant to be in the circle that I was in with Shirley Joe. It wasn't until this evening that I remembered how Shirley Joe and I met. And it was through Simone Bernard, who cast me or brought me into audition for a play called Down Payments at the Inner City Cultural Center. That's 20, how many years ago, Shamin? 30? Yeah, long time, right? And, you know, I was cast, and I only in this moment remember one other person who was in the cast, and her name was Cynthia James Reese. And I remember Cynthia Because in this play, Down Payments, there was a moment on stage where our two characters were in conflict. Oh, did I mention that Cynthia and I did not like one another? And did I mention that Shirley Joe knew that? And there's this moment in the play where Cynthia's character slaps my character. And we all know that on stage you don't really get slapped. It's called a stage slap. You know, you practice it over and over and over again. And then when it's coming, it's staged in such a way that the audience thinks that the actor has been smacked, but the actor has not. Except on the night that Cynthia James Reese slapped the, excuse my French, shit out of me. And I'm blinking, literally. And I'm trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do. And I have to say the line, because if you don't say the line, if you blow Shirley Joe Finney's performance, if you break and deviate from the truth of the moment, there will be hell to pay. And so after the show, Shirley Joe comes running back. She comes running back. And she says, "Are you okay?" She says, you got slapped, right? You okay? And I'm looking at Shirley Joe, and I want to and begin to object to what has just frickin' happened on the stage. And Shirley Joe it was fabulous. It was wonderful. Shirley Joe Finney had no time for the extraneous. She was a bundle of feelings. And her bundle of feelings had two primary aims: tell a good story and be a place for feelings, that safe, seen, and heard. Those were her two North Stars. And so walking into a production with Shirley Joe Finney was like walking into a theater camp designed in heaven. Because I happen to be one of those actors, and there's a whole bunch of fabulous actors in this room who are unlike me. But I love the rehearsal process. Most of us do. Not so interested in the run, me. But the rehearsal process where you figure things out, where you have the room to step into and allow that life that you are given the opportunity to be a vessel for, to have the dance of trying to get it right, be that place where the truth is being told. That's what Shirley Joe Finney was interested in. And she did everything necessary to create that space. And she loved every aspect of telling the story, from the lights to the actors to the music to the smell. Everything was a part of her opportunity to use everything, even the people, the people called actors, the people. You know, just say, and then that's, all right. Okay. All right. Okay. That was what it was like working with Shirley Joe. And when it came to dress rehearsal, or maybe the week leading up to dress rehearsal, I don't know about the others, but I knew Shirley Joe well enough to listen for the hum. Because if she was really feeling it, she was doing two things. She was doing this, and she was, Shirley Joe became my friend. Simone Bernard became my friend. Cynthia James Reese became my friend. And we became a circle of 7 souls, spirits, committed to living this lifetime well. And we would meet, I can't say regularly, though it was regularly. But if either one of us picked up the phone and said that someone within the circle needed, didn't even matter what they needed, within 24 hours we were all there. And we would do what we were committed to doing, being that safe, seen space for one another, being that mirror, that encourager, and holding one another responsible to ourselves so that we could be a beneficial presence in our lives and then everything that we touched. We all dreamed together. We had a session that lives in all of our hearts where we designed our Times front cover life. And those were moments that made a difference in all of our lives. Shirley Joe, you know, when you feel as much as Shirley Joe felt, when you give as much as Shirley Joe gave, when you have as much uncontrollable energy, literally, you know, like vibrating through, she didn't have control over that. I mean, it was using her. And so I have to also share that she could go within. You know, after a show, you might not see her for a while, like you're still living. When you feel that much, when you are willing to be with pain for the sake of every single person in the audience being able to feel the truth of the character on the stage, because that's how we honor the stories and the history. When you are committed to that, it takes a toll, and you need to rest. Shirley Joe Finney gave it all, not 100%, not 200%. She was a take my life in this moment kind of gal when it came to every single production. And I have to tell you that I was incredibly blessed that our friendship was such that I came to her with a script for a play called The Circle. And handing it to her, my hand didn't shake, only because I can control my nerves. But I handed it to her because I knew two things. I knew that if Shirley Jo Finney saw something in that play, then there was something there. Because her eye was impeccable, and her heart was a true barometer of the hearts of people. And we worked on my play. She dramaturged it. We put it up in a number of cities. And that play is what it is because of who Shirley Jo was or is. I can't speak of her in the past tense. So I love her. I respect her. I honor the time that she shared on this side, and I expect her to keep showing up. Thank you so much.
Victor Walker is a managing partner at Charter Entertainment, an independent multimedia production company in Los Angeles. He served on the faculty at Stanford and Dartmouth, produced the off-Broadway production of August Wilson's Jitney, and was a producing partner on Colored Girls, planned for Broadway in 2008, which Shirley Jo was set to direct. Victor Walker.
Thank you, Stephen. First of all, I want to extend my sincerest gratitude to Shirley Jo's sister, Miss Diana Finney, and to Stephen Sachs, the artistic director of the Fountain Theater, for inviting me to participate in this wonderful celebration of the life and legacy of my dear sister, Shirley Jo Finney. I sent Stephen some photos of Shirley Jo from a press event in 2008 that my company held at the time in partnership with the Schubert Organization, and I sent him another video that you will see later of a 21-year-old Shirley Jo in 1970 in a rehearsal and a performance of Ain't Gonna Die a Natural Death at Sacramento State. And I sent those two items to Stephen, and I told him, I said, we talked about it, and he said, Victor, he called me back, he said, and I explained to him, I said, let me give you sort of some idea about those two, how those two things are connected. I said, Shirley was under the direction of my dear friend and my mentor, Paul Carter Harrison. Some of you here know Paul. He was the chair of the theater department at Sac State, and he was the person who directed Ain't Gonna Die a Natural Death. I told Stephen about how that story connected the 1970 clip with the 2008 photos, which you'll see later at the press event. I said, those two things explain the genesis of Shirley Jo's directing career, the beginnings of her directing career. And he said, you have to tell that story. And I told him the entire story. You have to tell the story. I said, so here it is. In 2006, my company, Dream Team Entertainment Group, hired Shirley to direct the Broadway revival of Answer Shungaze for Colored Girls. Now, I had known Shirley since the late 1980s, and I met her through Paul Carter Harrison, the brother who directed Ain't Gonna Die a Natural Death, who was my mentor. And so Paul introduced us, and I brought Shirley out later on. She did the Wilma Rudolph story, and I remembered her from that. She did a couple of other things. And so we were doing a symposium sponsored by the Women's Studies, Afro-American Studies, Film Studies, Theater Department on African-American women in theater, film, and television. And I invited Shirley Jo and Bea Richards to do a panel. And it was an amazing panel. They got a 5-minute standing ovation. The panel was supposed to last 30 minutes. It went on for an hour and a half. And it was absolutely amazing. Anyway, going back to the For Color Girls production, after 3 months of audition, Shirley assembled a dream cast who adored her. We had 5-time Grammy Award nominee India Arie. We had Taraji P. Henson, Academy Award nominee. We had Journey Smollett, America Fiera from Ugly Betty, Meryl Dandridge. We had Denai Guerrero, who now is in the Black Panther series, who plays Okoye, the general of the Army of Wakanda. And so several days before, after that press event, several days before that press event, Paul Carter Harrison said, Victor, I want to take, and if any of you know Paul Carter Harrison, Paul speaks with a kind of cross between a New England brogue and a British accent, a black man from Harlem. And Paul said, Victor, I want to take you and Shirley Joe out to dinner to celebrate Shirley's first Broadway production and your first Broadway production as a producer, her Broadway production as a director. And I said, great, so we go out to dinner. And so Paul and Shirley started to regale me in the story of Ain't Gonna Die a Natural Death. And how that production, Paul said, he said, look, man, he said, Shirley, when I was a professor there at Sac State, and he said, immediately I knew I was going to cast Shirley in the show. He said, but, you know, I brought Shirley in, and we were doing the rehearsals. He said, now, Melvin Van Peebles had sent me 8 songs and 9 poems and said, do something with that. Now, Paul and Melvin Van Peebles had been friends in Europe. Paul lived in Amsterdam. Melvin lived in Paris in the 50s and the 60s, late 50s to the mid-60s. And they used to hang out together. So when both of them returned to the States, Paul said that after the success of Watermelon Man, Manny Eisenberg, at that time a budding Broadway producer, went to Melvin. He knew him from Paris and said, do you have any stuff in theater? He said, yeah, I got this play I'm working on called Ain't Gonna Die a Natural Death. Well, Paul said, when I got the stuff, man, it was just music and some poems. He said, so I called Melvin and said, what am I supposed to do with this? He said, make a play out of it. Because Manny said he wants to do this thing, so you make a play out of it. So Paul said, so I cast the thing. He said, and you know, Shirley, man, has got this thing going, and you'll see Shirley in this video later in Ain't Gonna Die a Natural Death at 21 years old at Sac State. Hey, man, he's got the thing. He said, so Shirley's like tearing this thing up. And I said, that's the sister guy. Blah, I'm going to help me put this together. We're putting this thing together. He said, so one day I come to rehearsal. He says, before rehearsal, I want to meet with the staff so we can start getting prepared for rehearsal. He said, and the staff is sitting outside in the lobby. And I said, what are you doing out? He said, oh, well, Shirley Joe's in there with the actors. He said, what do you mean Shirley's with the actors? He said, she's working with the actors. So Paul said, but I'm the damn director. What do you mean? He said, so I walk in the room. Shirley's got the actors arranged. She said, Paul, let me show you what I'm doing. And so he says, there Shirley is, man. Got the actors all arranged. And the guy said, yeah. He said, the women like, yeah, Paul, we should do it this way. So he said, first I got a bit annoyed. He said, what is she doing? He said, but then I looked at it, he said, that looks pretty good. I said, okay. He said, all right, I'll stick with that. So he said, and it went on like that. He said, so after rehearsal, Shirley would stay with me after rehearsal. We would talk for like an hour. And Shirley would say, Paul, you should do. He said, because one thing about Shirley, she loves music. He said, and Shirley loved to dance. So he said, Shirley would get up and show me stuff. You need to have so-and-so do it this way and that way. So Paul said, man, he said, okay, all right. So anyway, Ain't Gonna Die a Natural Death went to Broadway. In October 1971, it opened on Broadway. Ran for 325 performances, nominated for 7 Tony Awards. It was the first jazz spoken word production on Broadway, and at the time, the most financially successful black dramatic play in the history of Broadway. Paul told me he and Shirley Joe attended the production. He said, Shirley, I want you to come out to New York and attend the production. So after the production, he said, Shirley told me, she said, Paul, you did that thing. And Paul said, no, sister. That's your work up there, too. He said, so when I went to Shirley's graduation, he said, Shirley, I'm going to tell you something. He said, I know you want to go to Hollywood and you're going to do all of that and want to be an actor. He said, you're a director. And he said, Shirley, he said, sister, you are a director. He said, I saw it on Ain't Gonna Die a Natural Death. He said, what was there on that stage in New York on Broadway, you put that together with me at Sac State. You are a director. So Shirley, brother, he said, look, when you are ready to take that track, give me a call. I know you want to be an actress. He said, because Hollywood don't know what to do with black actresses. He said, I'm telling you, this thing is not going to work out. He said, they don't know what to do with talented black actresses that are brilliant like you. Because Paul told me later on, he said, I had cast Shirley and Medea right after we did Ain't Gonna Die Now. He said, she tore Medea up, man. Just tore it up. So anyway, we're at dinner talking about this. And so Shirley says, Paul, do you remember what you said when I finally called you and said, you know that directing thing you was telling me about? I want to talk about that. And he said, do you remember what you said to me? And Paul said, oh, I remember absolutely what I said to you. I said, I was wondering what took you so damn long to call. So Paul and Shirley started to work together. And Shirley said from the late 80s to the mid 90s, he served as mentor, dramaturg, and so on. And as we say in the business, the rest is history. Shirley became a prolific director. But due to a number of unforeseen circumstances, our show never opened on Broadway. Remember, that was the year we had the economic crash. 2008, we were scheduled to open at the end of 2008, and right after Labor Day, the economy imploded in 2008. Even Cameron McIntosh couldn't bring Brigadoon into Broadway. There was no money. There was no audience. Everybody was focused on the economy. But I always remembered Shirley Joe because she was a friend and someone I loved. And I wear this vest in honor of Shirley Joe. And some of these photos you're going to see later, you'll see this vest. Shirley loved this vest because it's a jazz scene. And Shirley would tell me all the time, you're going to give me that vest. That vest belonged to me. She said, now, you're going to give me that vest. And we went back. I said, Shirley, you ain't getting the vest. Yeah, you're going to give me that vest. And every time she see me, she said, you're going to give me that vest. But you know, one day I would not be surprised if I open my closet and that vest ain't there. And when I look in my closet and that vest ain't there, you know what I'm going to say? I was wondering what took you so damn long to come get your vest. Thank you, everybody. And let us all say Ashe to Shirley Joe. Ashe, Ashe, so shall it be.
It's great. It's just great hearing all these stories. The last play Shirley Joe directed was a production of Clyde's by Lynn Nottage at the Ensemble Theater in Houston just 9 months ago. Yeah, in March. Some members of that company have sent a video message acknowledging Shirley Joe. Let's see what they have to say.
Miss Shirley Joe was a joy to work with. She was relentless in finding the truth of each of our characters, and she was also so committed to knowing who we were as artists and as people and members of the community, and I'm so appreciative of that.
She was so detail-oriented and just was able to make such a welcoming environment. It wasn't afraid to be goofy. The dance breaks during rehearsal were always a fun time.
She was fearless. She did not accept the first or the second or the third try, but she knew the language in which to speak to an artist and make it their idea. It was a joy. I'll miss her.
I met Miss Shirley Joe during COVID through the screen. I never got the opportunity to work with her in person, but her true essence and character leaped through the screen. She always made us go deeper, like Tim said, on the journey, and it was just a pleasure to watch her unpack the script and the text. So I'll miss her so much.
Who else could let you know that's not quite it without ever saying the words? That's not quite it. Shirley Joe is a light to the world and this craft that we all love so much. It was evident that she loved it, and those shards she left behind in all of us. The Ensemble Theater is so grateful to have shared space with her and to be able to move forward her legacy.
The Ensemble Theater loves Shirley Joe Finney, and Shirley Joe Finney loves the Ensemble Theater. We think of Shirley Joe and we think of Black art, storytelling, and female-led artistry. We are extremely grateful that the last artistic endeavor that Shirley Joe did was here at the Ensemble Theater. When we speak the name Shirley Joe, we embrace joy.
Oh, Jay. All right, Jamisha. James Etta.
Go out there tonight, take wings and shine, and let your light be a beacon for others.
And now, here to sing us a song is the actress known for the Netflix series On My Block. She starred on the Fountain stage as Billie Holiday in Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill, and in Shirley Joe Finney's LA premiere of In the Red and Brown Water, Miss Peggy Blow.
All right, hello everybody. I don't know why they said center stage. I don't need center stage. Do I, Shirley Joe? Shirley Joe Finney. I have had such an experience. I have worked with amazing directors, but Shirley Joe took the cake for all of them. Now, many of her features have been pointed out, but one wasn't, and I'm so glad because I want to do it. At a rehearsal for me, because I've done several shows with her. The very first show I did with her was Oobla Dee in Palo Alto. The Mary Lou Williams, who led Duke Ellington's orchestra. Wonderful piece. And this show, that show, this show. What a treasure to have her on this journey. And Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill at the Fountain. And prior to that, we did it at Alabama Shakespeare Festival. Now, I'm not going to talk too much, but she would do this thing that I loved. I got to put this down because I got to do it for you. And everybody that knows her will recognize this. When she's happy about something that you did or you said or something, here we go. She was in her joy when she did that, huh? Am I right? Yeah? Yeah. I was asked to sing tonight for Shirley Joe, Stephen, Simon. And, you know, there are these songs for these occasions, and it's like, nah, I don't think so. This is Shirley Joe Finney. You know, we got to do something that has some joy attached to it. And this is a song that you all know, so please, by all means, join in. Okay, fellas, you ready? Oh, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and ask you. Thank you for being a friend. You know the song, right? So when I do the refrain at the end, I want you to come in on the refrain. I will say, thank you for being a friend. Want to thank you. Thank you for being a friend. Want to thank you. One more time. Thank you for being a friend. Want to thank you. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, all right now. We won't do it that slow, though, because I've talked too long. I'm sorry. Oh, one more thing that was mentioned earlier, how she directs you in jazz. Well, I'm a jazz singer. You should hear some of our rehearsals. It threw a few producers. During the time we were doing Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill, it would kind of go like this. She would say, oh, Peggy, you know that, I said, oh. That's it. Okay? And the producer is in the corner going, what? The show won awards, by the way. Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true, you're a pal and her confidant. And if you threw a party, invited everyone you knew, you would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend. And when we die and throw away into the night, the Milky Way, you'll hear me call the you with it. I will say once again, thank you for being a friend, wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend, wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. Keep the refrain up for me. Shirley Joe, we wanna thank you. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh. May the feminine power of the Orishas embrace you, my sister, lift you up, and journey with you on your immaculate ascension. Thank you for everything.
Oh. Cariss McGee is the author of 7 children's books and vice president of the Inglewood Unified School District. And she also does the best Shirley Joe Finney impression that I've ever heard. Miss Cariss McGee. Carly?
Stephen, thank you. And everyone else for being here. I think I was dubbed tonight as Shirley Joe's best friend, but she had a lot of besties, and they're here this evening. And so I'm just going to start at the beginning of our journey. I knew I would have to come behind her actors. And I knew they would be all so dramatic. And so I'll start my journey because I met Shirley in 1977 at the Inner City Cultural Theater. I went there because B. Richard was teaching a class, and me and my girlfriend just knew we would be able to enroll in her class. But when we got there, her class was filled. And so we said, well, can we take Glenn Thurman's class, or Turman, or whatever his name is? Because we seen him in some stuff too. And they said his class was also, it was filled. So they said, we have Shirley Joe Finney. We said, who? They said, oh, she just finished a film, the Wilma Rudolph story. I'm like, we didn't see it. But we were anxious to become actors, and so we took her class. I don't need to mimic Shirley. All of you have done a wonderful job. But we walk in there and she says, sit down. So we sat down. And then she had us on the ground, rolling around. I was like, Sylvia, this girl is crazy. And she don't even have no credit. So she said, well, why are you taking my class? And I was like, because we're trying to be actresses. And she said, well, I have my method. I'm like, no. So she said, oh, you want to be an actress? I'm like, yes, I do. She says, well, they're doing a play here called No Place to Be Somebody. I didn't really think that was a name. I thought she was making fun of me. So well, can you get me an audition? And she did. And I went to the audition, and it was a real play, No Place to Be Somebody. I could not get one word out of my mouth. I was just petrified. I had already paid my money, so I'm like, I'm going back to her class. Maybe the rolling around on the floor and the screaming and all this primal stuff she had us doing, maybe that's what I need. So I came back to this space that was so cold that you wore like layered clothes in there. Plus you had to roll around on the floor, so you wanted to be protected one way or the other. And she said, what you doing back in here? I said, well, I paid my money. She said, well, how did your little audition go? I said, they ain't ready for me. I'm somebody that knows I want to be someplace. So it was around Christmas. It was in December. And many of you will remember Arbax, the store that was on Wilshire. So I was in Arbax with my mother at the time, and I was like, oh, these are cute. And they were socks that had the little feet in it. And I was like, I should get that for my teacher. So we purchased them. I wrapped them up because I love presents. And I presented them to Shirley Joe. And you know Shirley. She said, I didn't think you liked me. I'm like, I just don't like your class, but you cool. So she opened them up, and of course, you know Shirley, she put them on immediately. And from that day, those socks sealed our relationship as friends. I always told her, you never let me be in a play. Why? You let Tina be in one. You let Cindy be in one. At least Cindy could sing. Tina didn't have no experience. She came from some ad agency. And I was there when that little thing happened, too. I was hurting for you, Tina. But I was rooting for your debut, Cindy. You made quite an impression. And so I began to see Shirley's work. And I was like, you could give me a line like, I'm over here. You know, just 2 words or 4 words, however you get your SAG card, that's all I needed. But I realized she needed me to fill the audience. She needed me to be her witness. And I was happy to do it. I always felt that I don't ever want to miss your work. Because if there's no witness to see it, sometimes it's like it didn't happen. And from the Goodman Theater to Oak and Ivy in New Jersey, to the Hillithrope Theater near LACC, when she called herself doing her own play. I did not miss going to Ohio, down in the Delta, Alice at the Kennedy Center. It was important to us. We talked almost every morning at 5:30. When she moved to Bellingham, I talked to 2 people, Rusty and Shirley. She said, girl, I got Diane's dog. He loved me. I'm training him. As if she did not need a trainer. All of what was said this evening, it is just her. Shirley loved her family. And she looked up to Diane, her big sister. And I just wanted you to know some things about Shirley that perhaps you didn't know, and some things I cannot share with you because you know she was extremely private. But her friendships were solid. Cindy, Tina, Rita, Marge, Shaman, and Barbara, who they're together, I'm sure, talking smack. And she loved her actors. She loved her actors. And when she loved your work, I had to hear about it from at least 5:30 a.m. to 6 a.m. Did you see her? That rocking, one thing I would not do, I would come as an audience person, because if I had to sit by her, she'd grab your leg and be holding on to it. And if I had to hear Bobby McFerrin in another one of her plays, I was gonna go crazy. It was like a signature. I would just wait. She must have the rights to that, because it was almost in every play. Shirley Joe was not only my best friend, but she was like a soulmate. She was someone who brought just immeasurable joy to life. Her talents were boundless, from being a gifted play director to sharing her laughter and warmth with everyone she encountered. She had an extraordinary way of making life more vibrant. We traveled together, sorta. I tried to go to Barcelona by myself. She walked in my office and she said, I'm going. I'm like, girl, you got some money? And she said, yeah, I'm gonna get a residual check. From where? Then she came back and she said, Cindy wanna go too. And Tina. Well, we went. We went to the south of France, Barcelona, and Portugal. It was supposed to be 5 people, but it was actually 6, because Tina brought a hat that was this big. And Shirley said, I ain't sitting by her. I'm like, I'm not sitting by her or that hat. But that was Tina. And that was one trip. That was a trip and that I will never forget. We prayed together. We talked, as I mentioned, almost every morning, and it was about everything. During the inauguration, you couldn't get enough of Barack Obama. She's like, "You going to the inauguration?" I'm like, "I'm going." She's like, "I'm going too." And we went. We had a wonderful time. Politics, I could not stand MSNBC. I mean, she just was like waking up with it. I'm like, "Shirley, it ain't that serious." She said, "But Trump won." I'm like, "Told you not to watch TV." She just loved the outdoors. It was home to her. The mountains, water. She just vibrated off of those things. And we enjoyed every opportunity that we got to spend with each other. She loved my children, and my children loved her. She created a bond that will forever be in our hearts. Her spirit was infectious, and her creativity knew no bounds. Whether she was directing a play or simply making people laugh, she had a magical way of leaving a lasting impression on everyone who was fortunate enough to meet her. There is pain for me this evening, but I will not only remember the pain of her absence, but I also the joy she brought into our lives. In the midst of our sorrows, let's celebrate the love, the laughter, and the memories that will ever connect us. I asked Shirley one day, I said, "Girl, if you want a Tony or an Oscar or a Golden Globe, what's the first thing you'd say when you got on stage?" I'm like, "Don't tell me. I want to thank the ancestors." So tonight, may the ancestors embrace Shirley Joe with love and happiness in the afterlife, just as she embraced life with passion and grace. As we say our goodbyes, let's carry her spirit with us, cherishing a legacy of remarkable women who touched our lives in the most beautiful way. May you find comfort in the memories that we shared this evening. And may Shirley Joe rest in peace and power, knowing she will always be cherished and a part of our hearts. Thank you.
Well, she may not have won a Tony or an Oscar, but she was honored with many awards in her career, including the Los Angeles Drama Critics Circle Award for Career Achievement in Directing, the Ovation Award for Best Director, and the UCLA Department of Theater, Film, and Television Distinguished Alumni Award. She attended the American Film Institute's Director Workshop for Women. She directed episodes of the sitcom Moesha, starring Brandy, and won the International Black Filmmakers Award for her short film, Remember Me. But it was never about the awards for her, although she liked getting them, as much as anybody, believe me. It was all about the work. She loved the process. She loved working with actors, with designers, with playwrights. And in this next video collage, you'll see Shirley Joe as actress and director doing what she loved best, the work.
From the beginning of time, women were storytellers, the keepers of ancient wisdom. Women told stories to maintain harmony and balance, both in the natural world and their communities. They told stories celebrating our living, our loving, our laughing, our crying, and our dying. These are the stories that touch the heart, stir the imagination, embrace the soul, inspiring, bold, powerful. Take wing.
I never wanted to go out with no other girls. Not steady.
That's okay. You know why?
No.
Because I think we're something special. And I always want us to be something special.
You know, it was when you was in Australia at the Olympics. And when you was at college in the summers and I couldn't see you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's when I knew we was something special.
It's funny because if you were doing the making of a Shirley Joe trek through my life in a rehearsal hall, I live for the process. I live for being in that space of discovery. It's an opiate for me.
It's important, especially now, in the times that we live in, that we support the mission of healing, of communicating, and loving each other unconditionally. And that's what the Family Theater does for me, and I know that's what the Family Theater does for you.
And the two video collages that you've seen tonight were created by projection designer Yi Nam, who first started working with Shirley Joe in 2015. So let's thank her for her work. Yi! Now, during the world premiere run of Citizen, an American Lyric at the Fountain in 2015, one of the actresses would fly off to New York between shows for these very important auditions. Now, she couldn't say what it was. It was all a secret. And it turned out that she was cast as Misty Knight in Luke Cage, making headlines as TV's first black female Marvel superhero. And then she starred in 3 seasons of the TV series All Rise. Ladies and gentlemen, Simone Missick.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Stephen. I think I questioned or had to ponder what circle I stood in, and I realized, and it was only reinforced by that picture of Shirley Joe and I, that I was the student. I first met Shirley Joe in August of 2012. I was auditioning for In the Red and Brown Water at the Fountain. And at the time, I had no idea what, or more importantly, with whom I was getting myself into. At this point, I had never done a play in Los Angeles before. I didn't know how important Shirley Joe was to the theater community. And what happened over the next 8 weeks of rehearsal and the next decade is a testament to not only the education, but also to how God used Shirley Joe to create community, to heal, to uplift, to grow, to change, and to make better myself and ourselves and the world. As anyone who has worked with her before knows, Shirley Joe often spoke of the ancestors, our responsibility to honor them, to conjure them in our work, and she believed that the spirits were, quote, in those seats as audience, forever changing the energy in the theater every single performance. And in this play, In the Red and Brown Water, it dealt with characters that were named after Orishas, Yoruba gods. So this felt like a divine calling of all of Shirley Joe's gifts. She infused the rehearsal process with dance, with gospel songs, with drums. We even had the OJ's I Love Music. And none of this was on the page. And she would come into rehearsal, and I'm not going to do a Shirley Joe impression because all of you have done it so well. But she would come into rehearsal and she would say, I had a dream last night. And we would go off onto what spirit had led her to. And some of it never made it on the stage, but it was all in our memory, in our bones, in the lifeblood of the show. And this was the brilliance of Shirley Joe. No moment was wasted, no beat was taken for granted, nothing was unimportant. And that this play centered around a young track star named Oya, the goddess of wind, lightning, and storms, now seems like a sort of closing of a circle for Shirley Joe, having started her career portraying another goddess of wind and lightning, Olympic track star Wilma Rudolph. And maybe it was the closing of that circle that made this production so tough, because I was rereading some of those production emails, and immediately my chest got tight, remembering how tense and how tough that rehearsal process was. And I mean tough, because some of those late night / early morning ramblings, notes emails that she would send in all caps, basically cussing us out. But she always signed them, Peace and Care, Shirley Joe. And that was her way. She was going to stomp around the stage like a lion roaring to get her point across. Or she would break into that laugh, that cackle that could be heard down the block. Or she would give you that hazel-eyed stare that you weren't sure if she wanted to hug you or swallow you whole. It was a trying process, but to this day, I count those members of the cast as family. And that production was the beginning of my relationship with Shirley Joe, one that allowed for me to grow as an artist in a way that I never had before. Shirley Joe saw something in me that no one did. After Red and Brown, she and I worked on The Road Weeps, The Well Runs Dry, where I played a 16-year-old Seminole girl in the 1800s. After that, she asked me to play a half-black, half-Iraqi violinist in a play called Closely Related Keys because she remembered that I played the violin, which was on my special skills section, which if you are an actor, you know nobody ever reads that. And if they do, they don't remember it. Her first email goes, "You play the violin, right? Can you do accents, Arab, Middle Eastern?" The second email, "Read script and let me know if this is something you could pull off. I know this wouldn't be PC, but what the hell?" In all my years as an actor, I had yet to do an accent of that kind or play the violin on stage or on screen, and the process was terrifyingly exhilarating. But every rehearsal, SJ imbued me with a sense of confidence that drove me deeper into character. 2 weeks before opening, a family emergency forced me to drop out of that production. I sent her an email at 3 a.m. She responded at 4:20. No questions asked, just nothing but love and prayers, because that was also Shirley Joe. Our next time working on stage together was probably the most difficult, the most challenging. In 2015, Stephen Sachs adapted Claudia Rankine's Citizen in American Lyric, an award-winning book of poetry on race in America. And the work was heavy. Every performance, every talkback was exhausting. But it was bigger than us. It was about giving voice to the abused, the beaten, the countless murdered, unarmed children, women, and men in this country and abroad. And we were called to do this. We were literally handpicked, no auditions, by Shirley Joe to do this work. She saw all of us. And to work with Shirley Joe was to be seen, to be heard, and to be made safe as an artist. Her email to me before the show opened illustrated both my growth as an actor and the growth of our relationship. Her confidence in me over those 3 years and all of those productions equipped me for all that Hollywood would throw at me, good and bad. And after Citizen, I left to do my first ever TV series, and I know that it was the constant work, the consistent exploration, and fine-tuning, the stretching of my instrument that SJ gave me the opportunity to do that made me ready for the challenge. And with every work we did together, a new part of me was opened up, a new element to my craft she helped shape. And it was Shirley Joe who fostered that. She nurtured it with no BS, no pretense, just raw and honest. She was the definition of tough love. My art, and thus my life, was forever changed because of the divinely orchestrated meeting of Shirley Joe. To be in her midst was an event. She was bold, unapologetic, her whole self, every single time she walked in a room. She could conjure her inner child and play coy, or her inner God and be powerful and full of fire and booming sound. She was mercurial, loving, and an artistic genius we will never see again. I have never met anyone even remotely like Shirley Jo Finney. She is her own archetype. And now her spirit has gone on with the ancestors, and she is challenging us to pick up the baton. I love her. And we all do. And we are all made better because she was and is. Thank you.
It's now my honor to introduce Shirley Jo's sister, Diana, who came down from Bellingham, Washington, to be with us this evening. Diana?
How did you guys do that? You're used to it. Being in the limelight. Well, I've heard so many things about my sister, Shirley Jo. But the one thing that you've heard over and over and over again was something that I had planned on saying towards the end of my speech. Then you said it, and you said it, and then you said it. But, where is it? Oh. Okay. All right, here I am. Oh, God. You know Shirley Jo Finney, but you do not know the woman who raised Shirley Jo Finney. Rosetta Finney, or Rosetta James, or Rosetta Amy James Finney, depending on her feelings about what was happening in her life at that time. But my mother was one of the most unusual women in my world and in Shirley's world. And to understand some of the things that you saw, you would have to understand how we were brought up. My mother was a woman who did not believe other people could control who she was, why she was. My mother, Shirley told me this story. Coming from school, coming from school, first day in Los Angeles, first time in a predominantly black neighborhood, black school. The teacher said to ask Shirley, "Oh, where did you come from?" And Shirley said, "I came from El Paso, Texas." "Well, what does your father do?" "Well, my father is a navigator on a plane." On the way home, these girls stopped her and said, "You lying! Your daddy don't fly no plane. Black men don't fly planes." And Shirley ran home and started crying. And mother said, "Well, this is an experience. There'll be more like this." Then the other experience that she had similarly is when we somewhat segregate, the busing thing that you brought new people from one neighborhood into another neighborhood. And Shirley has had the opportunity to live, work, and schooled among people who did not look like her. She knew how to navigate. They loved her.
no matter where she was either she was the favorite, the popular person in school, in class. These women, girls who came over to her school, did not understand why she was with these people and not with them. And they made her feel bad. She goes home, cries to my mother. You know, nobody likes me. I don't know if I'm here. I don't know whether I'm there. And my mother looked at Shirley and said, "You have a problem that you are going to have to solve. But I'll give you some help in doing that. Think who makes you feel good about who you are and why you are, and who does not." Now, you have to think about that. I'm not going to tell you to make those choices. That's something that you will have to make. And my mother, like my mother, just walked out away. You know, and she was the type of woman who did things like that. She gave you here, here's there, and everywhere. But my mother was also the type of woman that in Merced, where Shirley grew up as a child, was born and grew up, the Easter parade, you remember those back in the 50s? If some of you can remember that, back in the 50s? In the Valley in California, you know, the Easter parade. I was the first little colored girl that pulled a little buggy in front of her on the Easter parade. After that, the women in the neighborhood said, "How did you get Diana in the Easter parade?" They never had any colored folks in the Easter parade. And my mother said, "Did you ever ask?" That was Mama. That was Mama. She was that forerunner. El Paso, Texas. Desegregation opened up the opportunity for for blacks to be able to go beyond a BA degree without having to leave the state in the Confederate apartheid country. When that was opened up, she was one of the first to enroll in Texas Western College in El Paso, Texas. Front runner of all of everything. She introduced Shirley to music, piano lessons, as you saw, tap dancing, always Shirley, the first. You know, and so she had that experience of blaze running, being the first, doing it. And that was my mother, you know, saying, "Did you ask?" And I've heard so many beautiful stories from Shirley that it was nice to see her a way that I didn't have the opportunity to see as much of that from her, but enough of that to know that, yes, she was very special, but she had a very special family and a very special mother and a very, very special father. And all of that went into making her, helping her to be who she was. And we had music from classical music to jazz. When there was a play, my father would buy the album, which would Ugaba, 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 wah, ooh, wah, ooh, wah, ooh, wah, ooh, wah. I can ask for Peter Pan. I can call from da-da-da. And she would play that over and over and over and over. And over. And my father would come in and say, I bought it for you because you love music. But I take a lot of bull at work. And when I come home, I need some peace and quiet. When I'm at home, enjoy Peter Pan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diana. When we're young, death is a faraway thing, as it should be. Then as we grow older, that final horizon creeps closer and closer. Grandparents pass, then parents, then a sibling, then a friend. You wake up one morning, and what once seemed unthinkable is now a stranger you need to make friends with. Just to get through our day, we must come to a place of reluctant acceptance. We learn loss is what life is. But I'm really struggling to fathom a world without Shirley Joe. She was too big a spirit, too fierce, too alive, always in ecstatic motion. I just don't know where to put this. Emily Dickinson said it this way: the bustle in a house the morning after death is solemnest of industries enacted upon earth, the sweeping up the heart and putting love away we shall not want to use again until eternity. But I can hear Shirley Joe right now saying, she's arguing with Emily Dickinson. She's saying, don't put that love away. Use it again and again and again. My thanks again to Center Theater Group and the good folks here at the Kirk Douglas Theater for welcoming us into their home this evening to honor and celebrate our dear friend. Good night, everyone.